Hello, and welcome back to the Q&A and roundtable for Tech Talk. We are now accepting questions at the team chat. And again, if you want to ask any questions or you have any topics that you want us to talk about, then you can join the team chat via the link that is in the video wall. I will want to welcome back Knut, Tommy, and you, and as well Ole, which is a fellow XR developer from Eon Reality.
Hello everyone, my name is Ole Midthun, and I work at Eon Reality as a VR developer. Now, we have opened up the Teams meeting for questions, and we look forward to hearing from the curious minds that are watching. But I would like to open up with a question to the panel in general about the state of XR. So in the talks that we've been seeing so far, we've seen a lot of different technologies used. Now, VR has come a long way in the last few years, and there is much more to come in the coming years. So I would like to ask, first of all, Tommy and you, about why did you choose the VR equipment that you did use, and what do you see in the future that would hold some real promise for even better experiences in your field?
Well, as regards to the VR equipment, we had a very controlled setting for our project. We knew the premises and the physical space that we're trying to build it in, and we could pick the best hardware we thought was suited for the job. And we actually had lots of iterations for this. And we ended up on the HMD side, on the headset side, we went lots of trips trying to figure out the best technology for this. And at some point, we actually wanted to make it wireless, completely wireless, using a Quest headset and streaming. But this proved to be not viable at the time. So we kind of tried to get the best hardware we could possible for the solution. And we also, like I mentioned in the presentation, wanted to wait for the next generation hardware, which wasn't available at the moment. So I think we were some of the first people in Europe to take the new HP VR backpacks into use. And so we just tried to get the best hardware we possibly could at the time.
Great. And then I'd like to raise the same question to Knut. What equipment do you rely the most on right now, and what do you think will make the biggest difference in the few coming years?
Our system is, we like to make it agnostic and let people have what they are having back home first. PCs, Macintosh, tablets, and those capable of having VR glasses and AR glasses in combination with those. That's what we're looking for. So versatile solution, agnostic, and useful for wherever you are, actually, and wherever you can use it, as long as you have a 4G connection. So when you're looking at the next step in the future, I think that the AR glasses will be more lighter. There'll be a lot of applications coming in, but I think if you're only looking at diverse sectors, like having AR solution, that's the only thing, and then you have a VR solution, that's the only thing. I think that's going to be a little bit difficult for the people around you. I think that people around in the world, I want to have something that can be more useful for AR and VR and PC, like what we do. So that's what we're doing it now and growing up with that.
Yes, thank you. To just build on what you just said, XR technology is becoming more and more powerful and more cheap. And do any of you think that it will be more commonplace for the everyday Joe to have either a VR headset or AR glasses? I know we have had talks that have talked about exactly this before today, but will this become the third screen, or will it take over for something? What do you think?
I think it's going to be much more integrated into the future than it is today. I think that XR and the whole concept of the integrated environment is going to be filling much more of the everyday space and not such a special tool as it kind of is today.
Yeah, I agree on that, and I think that you will see solutions that combining what we have today in a mobile phone together with the AR glasses and VR glasses, and everything is melting more together in hardware side. The software part of it, it's easier to do something with, and we continue to do that. But I think that that will melt a little bit more together.
Yes. As well, we developers have had this problem that VR and the XR space have been a kind of niche market, at least until recent years, where it becomes that cheap and that strong to use, as most of you already know. Have you had any problems with selling your products or displaying your products to customers? Like in VR, at least, you have to experience the experience to really know what's happening. So what do you do to get this out to customers or promote your products?
Yeah, we actually had a big problem just for this presentation to take good screenshots of our setup and the experience, because it's very different from the screenshots that you see. The experience of being there and having the full body motion tracking and actually seeing your own hands and the tool you're gripping in VR and how that maps to the real world. The experience is very special, and it's very hard to convey that in a screenshot. We have a few shots where you can see the kind of the real world view side by side with the game view, but yeah, it's really hard to just take screenshots and do a presentation like this.
Yeah. It's kind of, you have to experience it, and it's not always easy to sell that.
Yeah, and experiences are, of course, important, but I think that we now have passed the biggest cultural obstacle, and that was to use Zoom and Teams to collaborate remotely. Because if you don't need to do that, or you don't understand that that is possible, so how could you rely on the benefits of what we are giving them? But what we are giving them now is that we're giving them solutions that they can be totally immersed in collaboration remotely. And the prices at the moment are dropping. So it's not actually very expensive to buy VR glasses that you can have back home. And it's easy to use. You can use even finger tracking. And then you have only the goggles. So it's flexible, available, and should be available for most people. So I think that the boost and the timing at the moment is very, very good for us working with VR and AR.
Great. So all of you work with VR and AR, and you work with very different kinds of experiences. Now my question is, who is approaching you at the moment interested in hearing about VR and AR? And do you think there's been a development in the last few years about who is curious about VR and AR can mean for them? Knut, do you want to start?
Well, I can do so. Of course, public sectors like the armed forces and like health sector, like the education sector, those are both interested and curious, and they also have available money for doing this. So they are, at the moment, like the Inland Norway University or Applied Science, which is one of our greatest partners. They want to use it in their educational circumstances and curriculums. So they are a very good partner for thinking in front of all others, to integrate something and to do a project which gives a value for themselves, but it gives a value for others also. Like for a medication room, for instance, gives a value for a university college, and it gives a value for the healthcare as a service. Industry will come after that. Some industries are pretty in front, but a lot of industries are, I think they're sitting and waiting to see if it works, what works, because it's costly. It's not costly anymore. The part which is costly is to develop specific things. But basically, the next 1 or 2 years, it'll be more available for the industry also, that it can capitalize on what's done already.
Yes, great. Something that I'm wondering about, because the next generation of networking is just on hand with 5G and Wi-Fi 6. And already you can stream high-quality PC VR in 4K 90 Hertz if you have a Wi-Fi 6 router to the Oculus Quest. And how do you think that this new networking technology will open possibilities in the XR space?
Yeah, as Tommy mentioned before, like this is something we actually tested on the previous generation with Oculus Quest 1. And as you said, we didn't choose that in the end because it wasn't stable enough for us, but we are very eager to test the Wi-Fi 6 solution. And I think the Oculus Quest 2 has that built in now. So I really want to test how that works in our application if we have a chance to test that. And as well, like there's also another problem of having 4 different headsets in the same space if there's any interference or anything like that. That's something we also haven't tested. So while I think for the home user, it's definitely a big plus, but for our application, it's still hard to know without having tested it.
Yeah, I can try to answer it also. Today, you get the most benefit out of it when you download the application to your VR glasses, AR glasses, or PC or whatever, because then you have most power in it. And then you can communicate over the internet, like what you have done for gaming for years. But you have certain way to go because the web browsers will not allow you to do the same in the very near future. And I don't think the web browser will do that either as good as the other solution, and that's remote rendering. And if you do remote rendering and put all the applications on a server, and then we just remote and mirror it to every other users there, it's very simple for the user to use it. You only get the picture and you get what you do work with, but you don't need to download it and install it on your computer or on your VR glasses. But it's a more heavy application to drive because you need more bandwidth. And that gives the benefits of the 5G as a possibility that you can do remote rendering in the future. And I believe that for us, we are prepared for remote rendering. Our applications are looking for that. So we are just waiting for the right time and the right timing and the right customer. Then we can do remote rendering in a few months.
Yeah, very cool. Like game companies are already doing this with applications and platforms like Stadia, GeForce Now, and Microsoft has their Xbox Game Pass and stuff like that, where they stream high-quality 4K 60 Hertz games directly to your application without any downloads. Now, do you think there could be a possibility where maybe through AR glasses or the next generation VR that we can just be anywhere in the world with 5G or 6G or whatever, and we don't have to do any kind of download, and we can get high-quality VR wherever we are?
Well, I guess this is like the ultimate dream of AR and VR, and to be completely wireless with extremely high content available anywhere at any time. And of course, that's the road to get there is progressing, definitely. There's still some way to go in order to have that experience in work as great as you want in real life. But I think it's definitely getting there. And once we reach that level of immersion, that level of detail, that level of easeability to use, it's what everybody will do. It's the obvious choice to use that form of technology once we reach that level, I think.
All right, we have a question here. Is there any financial gain for companies to use XR for training, for example?
It depends on how complicated you want it. Because today you can make your CAD drawings, beam drawings, and pretty quickly import them to a game engine and get use of it. But if you want it to be 100% look-alike what you have around you, you have to do something with it. So then it's just time, which is a bit costly, so it depends on how much you want. But you can reuse a lot of things. So it actually depends on what are you going to train and how complicated is it. Because as you see from our multiplayer collaboration platform, then you can train a lot of elements with small and objects into a certain room. So if you find those generic elements, like for instance the welfare apartment that we have, it's a generic apartment made by the school at Gjøvik and Helsingin. They wanted to have it as generic as possible because then they can use it for everyone. So if you can find industrial elements which is generic to you and generic to others, then it'll be beneficial for you to invest in it. And schools and public entities should think about that.
Yes, I completely agree. And I can also add, to get to the more extreme examples, the military is using this for things like rocket launches, because they get new recruits every year, and it costs millions of Norwegian crowns, millions of dollars to shoot a rocket. So of course they don't do that for every 20 recruits that they get in. So they use VR. Then they get that one-time cost of developing the software, and then each time it's free. You can try and you can fail as many times as you want for free after it's developed. The same with airplane pilots. New pilots use VR on the exactly same way, because there's no real danger in crashing in VR. So you get some on-hand experience before actually going into the airplane. And so in this way, for even in industries and for companies, if you have things that are costly or something that you have to train again and again and again on, there is a real financial gain by using XR in that way, at least.
Okay. So we have a question here that pulls back to Håvard's introduction earlier today. He talked about Ready Player One. And the question reads, Ready Player One has been mentioned, and the question is, how far are we away from utilizing something similar for example, training of doctors, military, and so on, with haptic feedback and free movement? So I suppose if I were to ask that question to Tommy and you, what kind of technology do you think you would prefer to have to reach the best level of experience for a user?
The best technology to use to integrate your presence into something like VR is, of course, technologies that is not non-intrusive. I mean, something that could track your hands and fingers and track your natural motion, your face, your mouth, to track lip movements and all of that. If all of this is integrated into something like a headset, it's very accessible. But of course, haptic feedback is an issue. You have to have some kind of physical device to create the haptic feedback. So you will be limited to something like gloves or something like this. But this is, this technology is always evolving. So it's kind of hard to see what will be in the future. But at least for the haptic feedback part, you will have to have something physical to wear. Otherwise, you can't really generate that haptic feedback. But the most non-intrusive technology is, of course, the best.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think accessibility is a big point in making VR more like mainstream, is to be able to just put on the headset without really having to go through the effort of kind of untangling the cables, basically, which is it's very freeing to be able to just be in VR without having anything on you. I think that is a more immersive experience than putting on all the gear and then going into VR. It's kind of, I don't think that's the right way to go, in a sense, like just putting on a lot of haptic gear.
Yeah. But today we are still a bit far from the Ready Player One vision. I mean, it's nice. It's a nice dream, and we might get there at some point. But the reality today is still more a bit unpractical.
Yes, that's completely true. And just to add on that, in Ready Player One, they used a full haptic suit. They used a VR treadmill, and they used VR glasses. And then what we saw in the virtual world was something completely different than what's possible. So technically, we already have the equipment they use in Ready Player One. We have VR 3D mills, we have VR headsets, we have full-body haptic suits. So that's possible. But of course, what they're actually doing in the virtual world is fantasy. And for the question, in training of doctors and military and haptic feedback, that's also happening right now. As I already mentioned, they are at least looking into using XR to both train. We already have your solution for medical appointments. The military is using XR in many different ways. They use HoloLens and AR. I don't know what they're doing, but we are already there at least. Now, for something a bit more extreme, when we are on this topic, because soon Neuralink, if you know what that is, will soon be tested on humans, voluntaries at least. And then we're going into Black Mirror territory, right? Where we have signals from our brain, and we can send signals to our brain and from our brain. And in the future, if this is safe, do you see any appliance there to the XR world with the Neuralink?
I think this is the ultimate VR, to have it directly connected to your brain without having to use any kind of gear. You can just have a perfectly simulated reality just by connecting something directly to your brain, and everything you experience seems real to you because the brain is, in fact, responding to it. So, but of course, this brings up a number of topics, like ethical dilemmas and practical issues. So I don't know if you will see something like that at some point, but it's a nice thought, I think.
Yeah, some companies, at least in China, will try, and then we'll see how that goes.
I remember we talked about that for 20 years ago. I had my first AR glasses in 2003 or 2004. What we really dream of is, I think that you can meet the technology possibilities faster than we can change our culture. And as human beings, it's not that easy to do these things as fast as we think we could do. And if it's question also about, is this necessary? So I think that you will see something, but I will think that most things will be related to if it's necessary, do you need it? What does it with your behavior, and what benefits is it in it? So by that, I think that you can combine a lot of things, because AI and other data into these solutions are not the problem today. We combine Google traffic with some of our solutions. You can combine those haptic elements, and you can also implement something in your brain if you like to do that. But I don't think that is the first thing that's going to happen. I think that's going to take a little bit of a while.
All right. Now, I would like to ask you a question about what you've shown us today, and that has to do with humans in VR. So, in Glava VR, we saw that you chose this robotic lady for being a guide for the player. And in the core solution that you showed, Knut, we could see that you chose to represent players as robotic avatars as well. Now, I would be interested in your perspectives and how you worked with these representations of human-like characters, and why did you end up with the solution that you ended up with in your program?
Well, for us, it was a very obvious choice, actually, because it's very hard to set the level of detail in VR so good that you can actually feel like the person you're talking to is a real person. You know, it's difficult to get the level of lifelikeness with the eyes and the facial movements. It takes a really large effort. So in order to make this into more of a robotic guide in the VR space, you're able to bypass some of these issues, because robotic is something dead, which is not alive, and therefore you don't have this kind of problem when you're talking to someone in real life VR.
Our choice is because that we have been focused on what you're doing in there. because you know that you don't get the expression of talking to another people because you don't see the expressions, so you actually don't need it. You don't need it to see a human being. There are a couple of elements which is important, is to recognize who is who. That's one thing. And the other thing is that if you are working with, like say, firemen and armed forces, then they are dependent on what kind of kit equipment they have on them. So if you want to recognize the kit, then it's more obviously more a good idea to have represented avatars as a human being. But the benefits of that could be done. It's quite easily to do that. But our choice was to get a reliable platform in the first place to work with those things that we mean that you actually need. And then we can add all those things which is more specific for some part of it. Because you don't see the eyes and your motions anyway before you have a holographic representation, which is good. And that's not quite right around the corner. You can do some, and you can do some inserts, so videos into the environment, but then again, then you have cameras with you, and then you are not available to do everything you want, wherever you want. So there are solutions, of course, but...
Yeah.
And we actually tried to balance some of this by using the motion capture as a more of a lifelike element in our solution. If the avatar in VR is robotic, you need to give her living, dynamic, real motion. So the motion capture part was actually really important for us in that aspect.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What most people that are not in the game development scene don't really think about is the uncanny valley factor. Yeah. And you see them all are nodding in agreement here. To create a real human being in a game or in extra solutions is not only really costly, because you need to do a lot of work to get them to look real. And if you don't put in all of that cost and all of that work, then they become scary and uncanny. And you don't want that. And like you said, by using robotic avatar, you can have movement and expressions. And soon we will have eye tracking on every device. We will have finger tracking on every device. So even though it's a robotic avatar, it's more cost-friendly, and you get all the expression, most of the expressions you want at least.
Can I just add something to that? We actually had the same issue with our player avatars in the VR experience, that if you were walking up to someone, I mean, since it's full body tracking, everybody can see each other and you can walk around each other. And if you walk up to someone and look in their eyes, it's really weird because it's that dead gaze. So how to solve this? Well, we actually did something really stupid, and that's to put a VR headset on them inside of VR space to make it like a meta reality. And then we didn't have to face the issue.
Yes, we've had some experiences as well where we've misplaced some materials on the eyes of people in our VR experiences, and the moment that the eyes are out of place, that's when some things really start to go wrong in your brain when seeing another person. Do you have anything to say on this, Knut?
Yeah, you can see some of the newest games today, they have very, very lookalike people, but it's an extremely costly procedure to make those people. And also to make them react the way you like. So to avoid this uncanny valley element, like the avatars we showed on the animated characters we have, those are 100% human being in their emotions. They also have the characteristics and the way with motions and expressions, and they have like 49 expressions, which can be turned in from 0 to 100%. So you have all the smilings and all the catching and things, but you know exactly when you're going there that this is not a human being. So you don't need to confuse your brain with thinking, oh, is it a human being or is it not? You just avoid that immediately, and then you look upon it as a human being, because it acts like a human being, and that's the most important thing. That's what we express with the robots that we have at the moment. We can do others, as I said, but we do have the robots. But when you talk, when I listen to you, you have your voice, and I know it's your voice. So I'm actually connecting that robot with you, and I can see your emotions also. But if you only have hand controllers, and you don't have any sensors at your elbows and knees and other things, well, then your body could start to move very creepy. And a creepy person you're talking to is not maybe the right person you want to talk to.
Yes.
So there's a lot of pros and cons that you have to discuss when you're going into this. Do you need this or not?
I think the essence of it is that you want to communicate kind of the emotion or kind of the kind of try to emote what you're trying to communicate. So we usually communicate via body language, right? But so, and not necessarily like the exact look of that person. That's not as important when we're actually communicating. It's more the expression and all of that can be conveyed through like more basic symbols, you would say, like emojis. That's why emojis are popular, because they don't really represent one person. They represent emotions and expressions, and just using that you convey more than just trying to get the exact look of something. It's yeah.
Yes, thank you. We have some more questions here.
Yes. So this question here goes: in which field of work do you think there'll be the greatest gain of using AR or VR or MR, both with thoughts of cost reduction but also increased learning? Knut, why don't you start with this?
In which place? Oh, that's so many places, all over actually. So it depends on where you are. If it's on the school system, today they're meeting at a Newton room to put together small bricks to learn the mathematics. Why don't you do that in VR instead? One application for all in the schools and so on. So I like the medication room. We have schools up for nursery up in Finnmark, in Alta. They don't have a nursery room. So what should they do? Take their cars and move to Hammerfest, which is far away, and train in there, instead of trying to do it in VR. And the coach could be wherever. The coach can be in Oslo. You can have the best experts wherever to help you. So I think that it's not a question of where, it's everywhere. I can't say that anyone can avoid this actually in the next step. So why? Why try to avoid it?
Yeah, I agree, actually.
Yeah.
I think one sector that would I'm not sure about the status in this sector, but like commerce and products, being able to kind of see the product for yourself in the place where it's supposed to be. For example, I think IKEA had a catalog system with AR where you could place the furniture in your room. I think that kind of application has a very bright future, because just being able to see it where it's supposed to be rather than just buying it and hoping it works.
Yeah, there have been many applications there actually, like the IKEA one, or clothing stores that let you in AR see the clothes on you through a mirror or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then this also ties into the first presentation we had from OpenAR Cloud, because AR also holds a big place in commerce, in how companies and stores can present their products to the public. Knut, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I believe that for us as a platform provider, it's important for us to get as close as possible to the customer, and the customer can do customizing their 3D models and environment themselves. So the next step will be that they can put in different kind of environments and different kind of objects and then do the scenario building themselves. So when a customer can do that completely, I think that will give they will see the benefits, but because then you're not buying one option. You are buying a system that can give you thousands of options, and cases by cases by cases, build scenarios by scenarios by scenarios, and then you have a fully available and beneficial platform, I guess. So that's our next step.
Yes, thank you. Our next question here is, when making VR applications, are you ever worried that overuse of VR might cause eye injuries or downgraded eyesight? I can start here because I have a lot of experience with a project where I use a math VR project in schools. So I have used a lot of VR on really young children, where the whole classroom is using VR. And of course, I had a lot of worries from parents. And we have done this for quite a while now, many years. And as everything, if you misuse it or use it wrong, it could be dangerous. It's the same way if you look at the sun, then you're going to damage your eyes in the long run, right? But if you use it correctly and you use the guidelines, then there is no worry, at least not with the technology we have today. Do you want to add anything on health and security?
Actually, I think VR headsets that are created now, they actually have a limit on the lumen of the screens. So I think there was someone who talked about removing that limit and just creating their own VR headset. And then you could create kind of the experience of looking at the sun through the VR headset, it sounds very exciting actually. But that's probably not good to use in the long run.
Now, to add to that, buy your equipment from real retailers and trusted retailers, and be careful with experimental Chineseware. It's a good, thing to go with you. And all VR and XR and AR equipment comes with real warnings and how you should use the equipment. And as long as you follow those guidelines, you're completely safe. We have one more question here. Looking into the future, do you have a project you're excited to start working on?
We have a few projects that we're excited to start working on. Unfortunately, I can't talk about them. But there is a general excitement around the use of VR. I mean, a company like Logic Interactive works mainly with exhibits and public spaces and solutions like this. And while not perhaps the best time for a public VR setting, there is still a lot of excitement and the promise of creating like an immersion and an experience that gives visitors an opportunity to live something that they can't outside and they can't really do at home with their own VR headset, but to make it something special, something physical, something that simulates like experience. And we have some projects that we want to start doing, yeah.
For us, it's to see the platform doing the pipeline from your ID. For instance, you have the map, three-dimensional map, which we also have. Plan something, plan a new building, like a hospital. Then the architects and the others, they make this, plan it, look at the maps. You can do some editing in the maps, and then starting to build the CAD model of that one. Then you can import the CAD model into our system, and you can go through it and start to prepare training for the buildings, like a new hospital, for instance. And then you go through the training elements in that one. You start to do the training, and when the building are fixed in a complete drawing, and they haven't started to build the building yet, then you can train all the people inside there. And after you have trained the people, you can reuse this one. When the hospital is finished, then you start to use it for daily training, daily operational use. And then you can use AR into that one. So you can use it, AR parts of it inside the operational building. And so you have a lifetime reuse of the platform. From the idea of doing something through you have to demolish it, the whole building. So you can live with a platform for so many years. This is the kind of project that's quite nice. Then you see the benefits of VR, AR, and the before and after.
Thank you. We're going to finish the roundtable here. I want to thank you all for your great input, your great discussions.